Let me just set everything up, in this, we make music on Monday nights. And so usually that's Mondays is always, seems to be a big day. Oh shit, I forgot to change the title. Hang on. God dang it. Let me go change the title on everything. So just give me a minute.
Yeah, take your time.
All right. So 5D Sarah Remer. It might show the wrong title from the last show. For a bit, you just refresh it. But let me change it on Facebook. Sorry about this.
No
Just have to go with the energy the way it's kicking my ass here. So
I totally get it, dude. I get it.
5D Sarah, tag you. There you are. 3 mutual friends. Boom. And I'll change the other channels here in a bit. Okay, so all right, what are you doing here, Toddy? Here, let's see. Oh, that's for you. I got your stuff pulled up. Boom. And boom, boom. Oh, I need to fix that too. I'm all messed up. Okay, let's see here. Go back. Channel. Boom, boom, and boom. Okay. So I've got some comments pulled up just so I can take a look at it. Let me fix the speaker. Boom. It's crazy. Ever since we made the jump to soulsnetwork.com, I'm nervous. You would think almost 6,000 video productions, I wouldn't get nervous, but everything seems to be more sacred. And, you can't, I don't know for other people, but I can't really, get away from that. Like it's being present, has so many different meanings, but it's like the sacredness of everything. Like I can laugh, but there's less to laugh to, and I mean that in a good way. And the laughs are better because something really deep is seeping in. Anyway, what an intro for this show. We have my friend, I don't know her so well, so we're going to get to know each other in front of everybody, typical Soulology style, in front of our brothers and sisters. Sarah Remer from Boise, Idaho. She was on Authenticity's first show, I think. And she's a hell of an artist. She does some amazing stuff. We're going to look at her stuff and kind of just go from there. But so Sarah, welcome to SOULSPEAKS 5D. Thank you for coming in and honoring us with your presence today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor for me. I've just been a little nervous. It's been a while since I've been on a podcast platform. I did used to have my own quite a while ago, and just getting back into the rhythm. It's so much fun though. I love it.
Really? So you had a podcast. When did you have a podcast? Yeah. When were you doing that?
I had one, I think, well, it ended in 2020. Okay. But it was a really cool podcast. It's because I moved to Boise. I didn't know anyone here. So I decided, why don't I start a podcast? Then I can just meet and get to know people that are also creative people. So I had a lot of artists on, people who've gone through spiritual awakenings, wow. Healers, a lot of musicians. Yeah. And
so you went out into the community to find guests.
Yeah. And then people would find me. And right. Then the title was The Outer Fringe. So it was all, basically a lot to do with people who push back against societal expectations and kind of pave their own path. That was really the basis of it. And it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of really cool, interesting people that way.
It sounds like what I call soulology, which is just a word describing what you just described, transformation. You could say it so many different ways. Well, that's pretty cool. That's really cool. So prior to that, were you what were you like prior to that? I mean, I think that would take a lot to move to a new place and then start a podcast. That's definitely the higher aspect coming in, that conduit we were talking about earlier. Did you, a lot of people had, traumas or a series of traumas were to wake them up or whatever you want to call it. Most of the people that come on the show said I had it when I was born. It went away, it came back, dark nights of the soul, etc. All that stuff that's behind us. But just curious, because that was an important time. 2020 is when COVID was introduced to us, very early stages of it. That's when it came to an end for you. What was the buildup like? What was it? I would think that those shows somehow or another have certain attributes of your transformation, of that transition up to that point when you stopped. What were you like?
Well, I mean, like you said, trauma for sure. I think anyone who's gone through some type of spiritual awakening, even if they're unaware of it, have experienced some level of trauma. But mine came in right away. When I was a child, I had a lot of illness. I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. Then it turns out that it was just an infection that attacked my lungs. So breathing was always a real difficult thing for me. So that idea of feeling safe in my body and feeling secure and this human vessel has always been a huge challenge for me. I mean, obviously, working through it, I've understood so many of my behaviors, but one of the things I did turn to was drinking. And I drank heavily for a long time. And then I got sober in 2016, I believe. And then went through a lot. And then that's when I started painting. That's when I really turned to more of the things that I felt that had come in as a child that I'd pushed down. I started bringing it back. And I had to have that purity of consciousness and purity of mind in order for that to come back online. And it's really helped guide me through a lot of difficult times. And, moving away from the toxic behaviors that were only perpetuating it, perpetuating the pain.
Right.
And that's really, that's what brought me to where I'm at now. But when I was a child, I always painted, or I didn't paint, I'm sorry. I always did art. And that was my thing. That was my escape from just the reality of being trapped in this physical body. Because I do believe that I definitely, my past life, I don't believe that I was a human. I believe that the human body was very difficult for me to adjust to, take it or leave it. But yeah, that's just what I've come to understand about myself. And it's learning to become comfortable with it has come through the art, for sure.
Wow. I think a lot of people can resonate with what you said about the human body and the uncomfortableness, whether you look at it from an emotional standpoint, as using the word empath, but, really the energy of feeling energy and finding your own energy and figuring out what's what, you know what I mean? A lot of people, I think, would resonate with the way you describe it. So what was the first painting? And was it using the same types of paints and stuff that you use now?
It's the same paint that I use now. I'm sure it was a woman. I did a lot of divine feminine, like that's always been my thing. Even when I was doing a lot of drawing when I was younger, working with colored pencils, I loved drawing just beautiful goddess-like women. So I'm sure it was that. I honestly don't know, because I would start painting and then I'd hate it and then be like, there was a lot of frustrations through the process of trying to kind of grasp it. And it's really interesting. And then I did some pet portraits for some friends and I just kept doing it. And then, through painting, trying to really master realism, I guess you could call it, like really trying to make things look lifelike. I realized I had to go backwards.
Right.
And I had to start painting abstract. and I went full abstract for a while, and just painted a lot of movement, and, you know, worked with a lot of color and went in that direction. And then when I went back to trying to create something that has more life to, like, a realistic look to it, it became easier in a weird way by going away from. Yeah, I'm not sure why that process happened that way, but that's kind of how it worked.
It reminds me of like unlearning to learn.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like
Yeah.
a metaphor, a living, lived metaphor. When did you start to feel? I'm sure you did, or you wouldn't have done it in the first place. But when did you start to feel, you know, the conduit aspect of it? The point where you went, "Holy shit, I just did that." You know, like not where you impress yourself, because I know as an artist, that's pretty hard to do. You know, where you go, wow, that was a masterpiece. But you can have those moments. But when did you start to feel it? Because I get the feeling that it was part of your evolution, like maybe even markers in what you were able to produce and how you were able to produce it, were like kind of like lampposts or markers of your transformation.
Yeah, it was definitely, you know, I felt glimpses of it, you know, before I started painting abstract, but I have to say it was when I started painting abstract, because there was no thought behind it. And what you said, you kind of have to unlearn to relearn, you know, it was the letting go of too much thought. I think that really had something to do with it. And by going abstract, you don't really have to think. It's just a creative flow. And I think that had a lot to do with it. It was almost like I always think of this, like, you know, when you watch children paint or draw, they're just kind of they're going to town, and they're just, you know, coloring and going outside the lines and just creating. And they're in that creative space. And sometimes some of the art that they create, like the children create, is some of the best art I've seen. You can feel it. And it has that thing, you know, that higher frequency to it. So I almost went back to that childlike essence of just playfulness with art.
I love that.
And then moved back and incorporated into that. It just kept my mind there, where it was really just not overthinking.
It reminds me of what, you know, some people describe when they do it as automatic writing or even journaling. You know, any of us that have journaled a lot. Not that those thoughts aren't there during the journaling, but there are periods where you know, it's like in the blink of an eye, you just spit something out. Or like even doing, you know, like a freestyle, you know, melody or rhymes. Sometimes it just comes. It's like that space between, like, to me, like intuition and conscious thought, or intellect and intelligence, and infinite intelligence. It's a space. I don't know. That's just how I kind of see it. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And what I find, and I think I told you this, and I think this is okay to say this. I look at your paintings from the first one, and I'm like, those are the best paintings I've ever seen. Like, as a frequency, as a band of frequencies, because I literally take one glance at them, every one of them I've seen, you know, and immediately words come to me, understanding, coding. And you mentioned that you're not from here, as many people can relate to. And then you mentioned the divine feminine essence that you carry and express from the get-go. Do you have any kind of idea or thought as to what frequency you might correspond with in terms of planetary understanding?
It's interesting. I'm not really sure. I know what I've been told, and I know, like, I definitely know that my mission here was very clear, and a lot of it had to do with compassion, having compassion for humanity. And part of that was having to go through a lot of difficulty in my life in order, and almost like roadblocks in order to push through that and get to that place of compassion. I do know that was a big part of my mission. From what I've been told by a woman I've worked with, is that I was a ambassador being, and that's about as much as I know. I have not had communication with my galactic family as of yet, and I'm really looking forward to it. I know it's coming. I feel it coming in. And there's a part of me, the human part of me, just gets frustrated. It's like, come on, you know.
Well, we can all resonate with that as well.
I'm sure, yeah, because you know, there's like, I think one of the biggest things as a child that made me like over time as I've gotten older, I've come to understand why I felt this way, was always feeling homesick. Always kind of feeling like I was missing something, but I didn't know what. And since I started to have that understanding, that feeling has gone away. It's like, oh, now that I understand that why I had the feeling, I've been able to kind of heal that deep-seated loneliness that I would feel like I'd be in a group of people and I would just have this heaviness and this feeling of loneliness. And I never understood where it came from. And now it makes total sense.
Do you feel like it was the energy of you missing home, or was it both, or the other being the people that you would feel?
So hard to, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I do know that people who have a lot of, star seeds that come to this planet, do have that feeling. There's a common thread of traits. And I'm sure talking to as many people as you've heard that before. And
yeah, because I mean, I feel I can obviously Pleiades, you feel like a Pleiadian energy, because that's such a strong feminine energy. And then of course carrying that divine feminine essence, and kind of anchoring it through what we might call channeling or as a conduit. I've only known you since the first authenticity show, which is probably 2.5 to 3 months ago. And I've seen a change in your paintings just in the short time that I've been observing them, as I come across them and I see you post them and such. So maybe I've seen 10, 12, and they're just, not only is there encodement, again, as the individual experience goes, so goes the collective to me. But as I see the progression, part of the coding is the fluidness, or the actual leveling up within, captured within each painting, particularly this last one that just came up today, and I'll show that in a minute. But has there been an acceleration in your ability to put stuff out and it be, let's say, more accurate or more aligned or more pure?
It feels, definitely. There's something with the paintings that I've been creating as of recently that are holding a different frequency, like a higher frequency even. And it just, I don't know. I could take, something and paint it, like recreate something from years ago, and it would just hold something completely different. Like if I tried, obviously that wouldn't really work though. It has to be something fresh and new, but I do feel a different frequency coming in with the artwork that I've been doing more recently, for sure. And my boyfriend, who can, he sees energy, he sees people's auras, he can, I always have him come and take a look as I'm working on a painting and have him give me his feedback. And he will tell me, like, oh, it's just not there, or, something is missing, but lately it's just been, wow, I can see the energy in this painting already. Can see
Wow.
it right off the bat. Really cool. Yeah.
That's very cool. That's really cool that he can say that to you in the first place, and then it's being received for what it is, and it gives you a really good gauge, like, I mean, that's cool. Like a mirror's eyes, like you're looking, or he, you know what I mean? It's just cool.
Yeah.
Speaks of equilibrium. So now in terms of like what people are talking about collectively, ascension, or the transition we call ascension, or whatever the hell this is, do you feel like your paintings kind of speak to that narrative in a way, like as a piece of it, or
Definitely. I think one of the things that I've really moved into is creating more, because I've been called to create more. And the work I do permanent makeup and beauty services. I've been doing it for years. And there's been so many days where I've had like a day full of clients, and then they all cancel. And then right away, it's like, you have to paint. So I've been getting almost pushed. And, I really took the intuitive calling when it came in, about basically in 2020, when after like COVID hit, I got this calling to really kind of step back, work for myself, like really, I was working for myself, but like really step back and start really focusing on the art. And that's what's important. And it wasn't because that was the way that I was, providing income for myself, but it was what I was supposed to do. And it can be a difficult journey, especially having to remain in that surrender and trust and know that I will be okay, even if, I'm not working that traditional 9 to 5. And, I've really stepped back from that. Part of it too is just all of the intense energies and dealing with that and navigating life with that. I don't have the capacity to work a full-time job. I don't have it in me. I don't have the desire, but I have the desire to paint, and it gets stronger with time. And so it's really just following that internal guidance. And that's how I know that it's coming from more of a purposeful place, and not just, me doing what I think I should be doing. Oh, your sound cut out, Todd.
Sorry, I'm drinking mineral water, so I had to burp and I turned it off and I forgot. But no, I think a lot of people can relate to that on 2 points. One is this thing about kind of like this override or higher aspect or new direction or guidance, where we're being driven to do things that don't really fall in line with the typical conveyor belt of, call it the corporate ladder, call it, whatever you want to call it, the different things. But still doing it, and then kind of going through that tug of war with, what do I charge, and can I actually leave my job, and things like that. I think that aspect, a lot of people can relate to. And then, of course, stepping into that more, I can see where, in my own life and people like you, and observing many, many others and more every day, where the embodiment's taken on a new meaning, because we're actually seeing the results of it. And although they don't look like they're stopping potential global war or nuclear or whatever, big fears you want to pull up on the global scale, they are happening through the individual soul. And it's pretty cool. I know for me, it's pretty cool to see it reflected. Are you seeing that reflected to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've had so many synchronicities in my life where people show up in my life in such divine timing. And I really have unplugged from the world events. I'll get little snippets here and there, I kind of know roughly what's going on, but my focus has never been focusing on that, because it's just such a, it's not what's important. What's important is holding my vibration to the highest I can and helping others and being of service in a way that, is helping the collective. And I've just had so many amazing people come into my life. And I feel like that's the biggest thing that shows me and mirrors back to me where I've, like, my growth and where I've been evolving is through the people that enter my life and the people that fall away. And as long as I continue to just focus on, growing myself and my own inner healing, my own inner work, the outside just reflects it back to me. And the people that come into my life, the people I interact with, even just as little things like, at the grocery store, people will smile back at me kindly, like I don't have as much of that tension anymore in my personal life. Super interesting. I do believe we really mirror back a lot to each other. And sometimes if I'm off course, I will get that mirrored back too, because it's not always on, I'm not always completely on the path of high vibes. There have been times where it's like, oh, you're off course. You want me to, and then something will mirror back to me. And it just reminds me, oh, I've created this, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I think it's the admitting it that is the proof, admitting that I fall off, or, or I'm not there, I slipped away, or frequency dropped, or whatever you want to call it, rather than, feeling that it's all right all the time, in the sense that, I don't have any problems, I'm not feeling any energy, and the whole 9 yards. It's a humbling experience. Do you feel that, like, there's a lot of talk about the Trinity energy, the third energy, the golden child energy you mentioned, and I'll just take a metaphoric stream with it, going back to abstract, that really, kind of alludes to the child within. A lot of talk about inner child and all that. But as you've progressed, even like I said, in the short time I've been looking at your stuff, do you feel, or how much do you feel that that Trinity energy is the product of the conduit, that it's actually coming out in a more refined, better version from yourself of the child, the feminine, the masculine, equally expressing and physicalizing the energy that you're putting out?
I'm not super familiar with the Trinity energy. I do feel that the paintings, even if I paint something dark, for instance, like the painting that I just did is, I wouldn't even call it darker, but it's just more deeper, darker colors. And it could go two different directions. It could have almost like more of that, kind of a heavier feeling to it, or it could, but I feel like there's a balance. There's more balance in my paintings, whatever I'm painting, it doesn't feel too light or too dark. Does that make any sense at all?
It makes perfect sense to me, because when you first started answer, I thought I should have said balance. But yeah, so I see it that way. And like listening to you, this picture is actually a great example, especially with the sun, moon behind it, or the eclipse behind it, right? Because it is, that saying about two wings on the same bird. But so in other words, the balance, I guess, the Trinity to me would be, listening to you, I'm just reflecting on this right now, is that balance of the polarity or duality, depending on, how much you want to encompass. But it's like a tripod. It's like balancing all three as opposed to two. And I guess the third part of it being that child that you referred to, and that we've sought, that was, that inner child that needed healing and all that. But yeah, I find this painting to fall right in line with what you're saying. And this is the one you're talking about, the one you just came out with.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's powerful because it speaks to masculine, feminine, child. It speaks to Father, Son, Holy Ghost. It speaks to mind, body, spirit, Phoenix rising. God, it's deep. It's deep, no doubt. Let's look at another one. I like your stuff because it's very versatile too.
It's all, yeah, it's never the same.
Yeah, this one obviously speaks to union.
Mm-hmm.
And the colors, I think, are prominent with the pinks and the purples. This one seems to me like consciousness. Like, how mushrooms have consciousness.
Yes.
I'm not sure if these are cactus, but, I've had
Yes.
a meeting with cactus.
Yeah, I did a series of three. There's 3 of them. 3 cactus.
Oh, I see. Okay. Here
Yeah.
we go. Yeah. Very cool. Oh, yeah. And that one's
They
very
really
interesting.
have that symbol of protection and strength, and yeah, I love them.
This one's cool, like the cosmic rabbit, as in rabbit holes, and you got all these streams going around it, like all these are different.
Yeah.
We think of rabbit holes that are in the ground, but they're actually all over the multiverses. I don't know.
Never thought of rabbit hole.
Yeah. This one's very intense. What's the story behind this one?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
You don't?
There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of movement, and it feels, but so it's kind of chaotic, but yet it feels really peaceful to me.
Yeah. To me, I don't feel the chaos, and I guess everybody's different. I feel like this incredible consciousness, obviously the feminine mother, and how it's been birthed into these mushrooms, like these wild mushrooms. The fox. That's cool. Todd means the fox, by the way. I was reminded of that last week. Yeah, and this one here is really speaks to Mother Earth, creation.
Yeah.
Yeah. How often do you put these out?
I'm painting all the time. Usually when I start a painting, I finish it within a day or 2, usually 2 days. I'll usually start it one day and then finish it the next day. I paint very fast, and when I tell people that, they always have a hard, like, do you just sit and paint all day? It just happens so fast. I'm not sure why. I'm able to come out with a painting that quickly, but it just seems to come out of me with a lot of speed right now. And that's kind of how my abstracts work too. They would come out really quickly, but it's almost kind of now moved into anything I paint, it just comes out really quickly. So I'm painting a lot.
Is that yours behind you?
Yeah, that's one of my abstracts.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one speaks too. I mean, it's like cosmic web. Something else came to mind. Butterflies, for some reason.
Yeah.
Sacred geometry, like information. One of those pictures that I just showed, there was a guy on there that said you should do time lapse as you're painting him, and I thought, wow, that's a great idea.
Know.
But when you talk about movement, like I can see the movement in this abstract, and I feel like that's really one of the big subtle disclosures, is that nothing stands still, right? Like a noun is still. Like we're not nouns, we're verbs, or motion, energy of motion, transitive verbs or something. And I feel like that comes through as well. Now, do you get downloads while you're creating these things, or they themselves are the download, I guess?
I would believe they themselves are the download. Sometimes I will paint a painting due to a download. Like it's almost like the idea pops in. This is what I want to create. And then I don't know if it helps me translate that download or embody that download, but there is a process with, like, it is connected in some way with downloads I'm getting and then moving it to canvas. I'm not sure. And sometimes it does come in while I'm painting something. I'll just get this feeling of like, oh, I want to do this. And it feels, or I'll go in a different direction. But yeah, I do believe that there is some form of download that's happening. That's part of the process.
And then shared, because that's a true download, right? Shared in form. And like I'm picking up stuff from it. Some of it, falls in line with what, you say about it. Some of it takes me somewhere else. And like you were saying earlier about picking up a painting that you did a long time ago and something totally different comes out of it, or you see something different. So and everybody's different. But when it comes to getting encodement or downloading transmissions, whatever, activations, for you, is it more personal? Is there some collective information in there from your perspective as well, or is it more of a personal thing?
I think with the painting and the downloads that are coming through my paintings, it's more collective, but it's personal as well, if that makes sense, because it's all part of it. It's all interconnected. And sometimes it's just something that is personal that someone else will get that's personal to them, if that makes sense. So I think it's almost, there's no separation.
Right.
And the personal versus the collective, it's just the interpretation is different.
That would make sense as we continue to evolve and we feel more connectivity. Then those two things will become one, kind of like the download I got this morning. I was telling Anna on authenticity, where you're at your biggest and your smallest at the same time, if that makes sense, and that the actual perpetuation is in the trajectory of expressing in full embodiment, which is exactly what you do. And so on that note, and I just want to say too, I totally agree that, there's so many people coming out with so much stuff more and more every day. And the differentiation is kind of getting fuzzy, which is a good thing. Oneness, unity, consciousness, a big bowl of soup, everything's kind of not diluting, but expanding within. But I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. Do you like and there's no right or wrong, like what's your take on where we're at? Because you, like a lot of us, are saying, hey, you know what? How much longer is it going to be here? You know what I mean? Where do you feel that we're at? And I don't know, just kind of go off of that.
There's some frustration. I think there's frustration due to my own personal expectations that I've had to let go of, and also my idea of what it means, which I've had to let go of. I believe that we're exactly where we need to be. And I do really believe that. It is difficult to have to, I think the sooner you wake up, there is a difficulty in having that patience of allowing it to, unfold as it goes. And that's one of the things that I get all the time from my higher self is be patient. And, there is no, and like, there's no beginning and end, right? And I have to remind myself of that. And there's no way it's supposed to look, because it will appear the way it's meant to appear. So it's really just trusting the process, but there can be some frustration, and that has to do with my own stuff, right? Or my own perception of where I think we should be at. Right. But one of the things that I always have to remember is where was I a year ago compared to today? And the people in my life, and they're watching their expansion, and you see it when you kind of put that distance between the two, where you can see how much has changed. It's just hard sometimes when you're doing the day by day, and I've just been getting, I get pummeled with Ascension symptoms, but it's slowly starting to not have as much impact on me. But
Physical, of a physical nature?
I get, physical, emotional, all of the above. Physical in my physical reality. And, it's having that trust, though. This is all happening. Like I always say, things happen for you, not to you. Everything's happening to help me get to where I need to be. And the more I surrender, the more I trust, the more I let go, the easier it is, all of it. It's when I try to hold on to any idea or try to resist in any way that it makes it challenging. What about you? How do you feel, like, as far as where we're at? I would love to hear your take.
I don't know. Well, I mean, that's fresh off this download this morning. It's still landing like all these do, these downloads do. I don't know, something about thoughts, words, and actions. I was telling her that on the previous show, how that's my favorite new Holy Trinity, like that, balancing the three, all become one. Each is equally served in one fluid motion, whether it comes from the thought or comes from the word or comes from the action. That seems to be, it's like the most human, present, fullest consciousness makes the whole universe go round, or something like that. I don't know. It's a kind of a weird place, because it displaces everything else in terms of, these things that have had our attention, and we all know it's just a bunch of effery and propaganda and such. But even seeing those things and the perfection that they are, and what they are serving, as you were talking about with what you come across. So like I get up today and it's like I can feel this, but every day is becoming like this. I used to say when I first started Rewoke and I was on the streets, I used to say, or here, I guess, what's the difference? That's another one. What's the difference between talking and hearing within yourself? That Ascension on a scale of 1 to 10, today's Monday, I hit 10. Tomorrow I wake up and there's still a scale of 10, 1 to 10, but 10 is now a 1. So that whole never-ending, always beginning thing that you're talking about is what I was actually writing about this morning. And I'll try to do something with it tonight when we jam. But I feel like that it's not relevant to anything outside of us at this point. And this is a reality, I guess, that's coming in, that's natural and mysterious, but becoming more familiar. As we kind of, you could say in a sense, kind of go through life with blinders, but it's not really that. It's like going through life with full clarity at the steering wheel of the ship. And you're not looking what's going on the starboard corner, or whatever other parts of the ship there are. And by doing that, everything is in tune and synchronized, something like that. And it's just weird for me because, you see these false flag frequencies go up, they're not working. It makes sense. You can see the trajectory, but what's it going to look like? Is it going to be a bunch of people as conduits expressing their puzzle piece, and everybody's just thriving in that regard? And it's fantastic and fairy tale-ish, but I believe in it enough to say I'm going for this with all these people. And if we're wrong or I'm wrong, then I'll die trying, something like that. That's how I see it. So welcome to the lunatic fringe. Thank you for asking that. So I was going to ask you too, because as I sit here with you, and I think it serves, and again, just by the example of not talking, oh, we should all do this and we should all do that, but just applying my own source supplied, intelligence or understanding, is that to speak things as we realize them without a filter, so that we can acknowledge that which we have in common, which is becoming more and more clear, and makes no sense in the world. So like in this case right now, I said I kind of feel like this Pleiadian thing with you, but more than ever, I feel like this Lyran thing. And I can actually kind of see your galactic aspect. And I'm not saying that that's just my own interpretation as a living example of sharing potential code through, transparency or authenticity or whatever you want to call it. But in addition to that, I don't know where I was going to go with the rest of that, but let me show you, and maybe I'll remember. So I look at this one, and I see some of what I'm trying to say and, speak to.
Oh, yeah.
So I saw this a couple of months ago, whenever it came out. This is called Starborn. And this is like what I get out of your paintings, is this whole story, even if it's the face of the fox with whatever's around it. But like this to me speaks of so many different things. I've always felt that the galactic aspects that we have in are facilitators to the earth beings embodied and incarnated. They're not greater than us. They're just facilitators. They're the closest things to us, you might say, of our aspects, understanding also elementals and angelics, etc. But this kind of speaks to me. And when I talk to people like you that say, I know I'm not from here, and then you have a strong, growing stronger galactic attributes or characteristics coming through, I just wonder if a painting like this was something that came with additional memories. What are your memories? What does it feel like? Because I know a lot of this stuff we can't explain with words, but is that what this picture speaks to, that relationship, and not just with us as a collective, but you personally?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just sitting here looking at it, and as I'm listening to you, I've seen different things in this painting. The one thing that I do see is the oneness and how we're all connected. And how we're all, but it also has an aspect of higher self to it as well. And it's like that higher self may not be, look like that human form, So there's a lot that has come through in this painting, and it's really cool because the woman who bought this painting, she works with people who are abductees and have had extreme psychic abilities develop after their abductions. So I forgot about this painting. There's a lot of different things that it embodies, because I think it's just that, again, it goes back to that oneness and that interconnectedness, that there is no separation.
Yeah.
And that we are all one.
Yeah, which lends to the narrative or theory that what are characterized as abductions and what are sensationalized, or the aspects of the experience that are sensationalized, are those which would like lean more towards fear. But many of these, or enough of these people that have conveyed their experience have talked about, although there might have been a moment of discomfort or whatever the case is, these were actually elevations. And Mary Rodwell, who has been around since the 90s, and she's a a great warrioress and involved with these subjects, particularly the galactics and things around it. She told me one time on a show that she had collaborated with some faculty or maybe professors at a university in Australia that were studying the effects. I don't know how they were appraising it or by what components or metrics they were using. They had studied the effects of shamanic experiences, such as somebody going through and studying as an apprentice shaman and you know, kind of following that, or maybe ayahuasca ceremony or that type of thing. And she compared another group's study of those people that had had so-called abductions, and that the outcome was the same, that it created an elevation in the people, in their sensitivities and their skills and abilities, you know, as well as, I guess, memories and such. So yeah, I don't know, that just had to be said.
That's so cool. I love that.
I want to tell you, go ahead.
It makes sense.
Well, I wanted to tell you about my thing about this painting, because and I remembered it when I pulled it up. I saw this as, you know, like you said, there's never a beginning or an ending, right? They're all one and the same. And I said, well, I see the galactic aspects as facilitators, and then the higher self comment you're talking about, our higher aspect. What I saw in this painting was, and I'll take it back to, let me go back to a little closer shot. Where is it? Here it is. So beneath her sitting, I saw is like the earth. And if you look at the outline or the shadow of the, you know, like the light around her, it looks like it's forming or coming from a womb. And I felt like it was like Mother Earth, and like these flower looking things were the physical manifestation of her essence coming through her yoni, this female, right? And so as I followed this whole thing, and the ET aspect has the hand into her chest, which is connected to the flowers, I thought, like, okay, the chicken and the egg. It just kind of told a story to me, like the galactics coming to save or wake up the human beings, when actually it all came from her. That's what I got from it. And I'm telling you, when I look at your paintings, I get this stuff like in a word or 2 words or 3 words, but this whole story comes in. You know, like I said, even with the faces of the fox, and particularly that one today spoke to so many different things. So I really feel I you know, want to thank you, because I think a lot of people, when we say, hey, thank you for your service on behalf of humanity, this is what it looks like to me. And that's what I was referring to earlier when you asked me the question, when you turned it around on me. It's these little things that are mundane, as we were talking about on the last show, but they are actually multidimensionally speaking, multiversal speaking, having the greatest of impacts, because they're coming from this place that you describe as a conduit, you know, and we're starting to see those effects and what they can actually do. So I just want to say thank you, and those people like you, for sticking to it.
And thank you for all you do. It's amazing. It's so beautiful to be able to share this space with other people who are on this journey, and it's an honor.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things, I suppose that, you know, I should talk about this with you off camera, but I just feel like that, you know, it's okay to do it. So, like, one of the things with the SolargyNetwork.com, Solargy Network, is there are different components to it. And one of them is the Solargy Marketplace, what we call the Solargy Marketplace. Come up with different terms as we make, you know, this transition. Some people might call it the shop or the store or whatever. Nothing's in there today. And I've had in my mind since, you know, part of the downloads coming in, that there would be certain templates within this marketplace, which would be a transitory type of arena of exchange. And one of the things I had in mind was an artist, where things could be presented in a way ultimately for all the different templates to expand awareness of these geniuses and experts, or these conduits, or whatever word we want to use, in a space or an atmosphere of equal energy exchange. So that's something that I wanted to talk to you about. So I might as well just bring it up now. But as an example, though, as in a living example, because I really feel like that when we take these steps, people or other souls, in this atmosphere where there's no competition, they kind of get the reflection, right, of themselves, and then their spin on it comes out. So you don't have to answer me now.
Oh, well, you already know my answer, Todd. Of course, it would be an honor.
Thanks. So, we learned so much from the individual journey, because we are all connected. And I guess in a way, when we tap into the Akashic, or tap into the field, or whatever you want to call it, and we realize that we do tap into each other, and we can kind of put ourselves in someone's shoes if there's like say a Vesica Pisces 360 openness between them, and they merge, and then this is where it all comes from. But in terms of Sarah, what we know is Sarah, with your multidimensionality coming in like all of us, and starting to navigate life in a different way, and kind of collaborate with life's energy. Where are you, as far as you know anyway, because none of us have a 5-year plan anymore. But where are you headed to? Where are you at, and where are you headed to? Do you know? And all of them are the right answer.
I honestly don't have an answer. I know that wherever I'm headed is going to be where I'm supposed to be, because I have put myself into the space of being available to whatever comes in that is for my highest good and the highest good of all. And it's really been holding back, like I said, from living my life a certain way in order to answer those callings. And I do know that whatever I will be doing, I will be creating with, more of that unity consciousness and more community around that space. It's going to be a coming together. I really believe that.
Yeah.
As far as what it looks like, I don't know, but I know how it feels.
Right.
And it feels full. It feels complete. That's all I know.
That feels right, what you're saying. And feeling, I think, is the best way to operate now. That seems to be more and more obvious to us all. But and then also, again, too, like, to answer a question on an individual level, or from a singular perspective, as the question was asked, that also that there's a collective feel to your answer that I'm picking up from other people through their individual expression of their own forecast, if you will. And that is community, in a physical sense. That seems to be coming together, be it people that gather at a certain place, in their community, or people that are building a community in the middle of nowhere, or collaborating like on a Soulology network. And you could say that's community in a new sense as well. But I really feel that. And it sounds like that when you went to Boise and you started your podcast, that you may have even been part of, a team initiating some type of community in the physical as well. I can't even imagine going out on the streets, and I could do it. I've done it before, but not on a frequent basis, and finding people in the community to bring on the podcast. So that's, to me, a pretty strong sign that you're, following the guidance of your soul. You've connected with a lot of people there. Where were you from before?
So I lived in Miami before I moved to Boise. And I was in South Florida for 2 years. And then, but I'm originally from the Midwest. I grew up in South Dakota, and then at 18, I moved to Minneapolis and lived there for 17 years. So I've kind of bounced around.
South
I
Dakota.
bounced way to there over there and then way over. Yeah. So it's really, it's been a cool
South
journey.
Dakota. Yeah, that upper Midwest, that has particularly South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota has a really strong energy. Has a strong energy, lineage wise. I know it is for me, and I know other people that it does too. And obviously, associated with the indigenous, and then to go to South Florida. I spent some
Very
time there
different vibe.
too. Yeah, I was 90 days there back in my corporate life, and I was in a hotel, and I had breakfast on the balcony every day. I wasn't living like a king, but they treated me like that for 90 days on the beach. That's a pretty wild, varied place. I'd put right up there with New York City, maybe Chicago, LA, but in a different way. Miami's a very powerful place, South Florida and Florida as well.
Yeah.
So good.
It was a lot
good
of energy.
good, and yeah, initiation for or maybe you were clearing stuff or doing stuff before you went into Boise. Yeah,
I was definitely clearing.
Do you see yourself staying in Boise? And why'd you pick Boise?
I moved here for family.
Okay.
I had my sister, my younger brother, and my older brother here. My younger sister and my younger brother moved away. And my older brother is still here. He works all the time. So we don't get to be as connected as I would like, but also it's just what's meant to be, right? I found family and community through my friendships and through the people I've met here, and really grown to love Boise. As far as whether or not I'm going to stay here, I am open to wherever the universe calls me to be. And it would be just a knowing if something came in that felt right. I was in the car with my boyfriend earlier, and I was joking with him because he was kind of dressed all grungy. And I'm like, I said, "You're really representing the homeless community right now." It's just a joke.
What? Oh, the homeless,
the homeless community. And he's like, "Well, I'm never homeless." He's like, "Because home is here, right?" And just a silly story, but yeah, that it brought me back to that, where it really is. I relate to that. Yeah, because I've tried that. We're moving to a different place to start fresh, and having this idea of what it's going to be. It's always been, it really is like home is where you are internally, and then the outside reflects that back to you. And wherever I'm called to be, I feel that it will be where I'm supposed to be. So I'm open.
You mentioned family, and a lot of people have had similar journeys to each other when it comes to awakening and family. Many estranged, many kind of on the outside looking in.
Yes.
And then some of these, as in my situation, are seeming to come full circle. Obviously, you had family living there. I don't know where y'all where everybody was at, but are you feeling some of that? Were you kind of ostracized at one time for your awakening and the things that you were kind of putting out there? And then do you see any type of alignment coming with kind of the family before and where you're at now? Or were you everything always smooth?
It hasn't always been smooth. No, definitely not. But it's different with my family in this, like we've always been pretty independent of each other. We kind of have always allowed each of us to have our own paths. There's never been an enmeshment with my family. And I was raised that way, where it was, just there wasn't that enmeshment where that's really the only word I can think of to describe it. But my mom has always been gifted. She has always been able to, she has clairvoyant abilities and abilities that she's always been into that kind of, the awakening and all of that stuff. So my mom and I, we did go through a period where we had a difficult time connecting. And through my healing, it has healed our relationship.
Wow.
My sister and I, unfortunately, we do not talk. She's has a little bit more resistance, but there was also a phase that I had to go through to understand that it doesn't work, was really trying to force it on other people.
Right.
And with my sister, she was open enough where I thought I could really push her to that next level. And it, of course, backfired, right?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Everybody.
so yeah.
Yeah.
But my younger brother, my older brother, we get along. We respect each other's individual paths.
Right.
And as far as, family outside of my nuclear family unit, we all respect each other's individual paths. And I think that's always just been, ingrained in us. And so there really hasn't been a conflict with my awakening journey where other people are like, what is,
Well, with a mom that's clairvoyant, regardless of the typical, things that we work out with the mom, I mean, the fact that she's at that, open to some of the things that have come out with people. I know that's how it worked with my mom. I mean, I'm sure she thought I was crazy, but I always knew that she was open to my experience. And so therefore,
right.
What I had to say, you're crazy. Are you sure you weren't on this or on that or whatever the case is? But yeah, I just thought it was interesting because again, you seem to be through your travels or through your motions kind of foreshadowing what's happening now, which is to, bring recognition to these things that we're doing that we don't always know what we're doing and why we're doing it. But here you go into the motions of going to a place geographically and energetically where your family is. And then also, as you said earlier, actually going out and finding community, you could say creating community, and also being the impetus for it by, which must have been crazy guidance to go start a podcast. You know what I mean? Oh, I think I'll just go start a podcast and move to Boise, right? And then the painting is the birth of all that. Yeah. So how do people find you? I know I went to Facebook here. Are you on other things like Instagram and all that stuff?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm on, so on Facebook, Sarah Remer, SARAHREMER, and then I'm on Instagram, SR212. And that's where I post,
SR212. That's your real identity, your real galactic name right there.
I don't know.
You're like Elon Musk.
I made it a long time ago.
You're like Elon Musk's kids, right? You're a number.
Yes, it's a code.
Yeah. SR22. Well, that's a good number. Oh, SR,
yeah.
Sarah Remer. But 22 is a very cool number. Master number. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate
my birthday is 212 and my last name is REMER. So there's an association with palindromes. I'm not sure what it means, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Both my last name and my birthday are palindromes.
Wow. Well, there's no mistakes.
No, there isn't.
That speaks to, to oneness, to unity consciousness, forward and backward, the same thing, centered on, centered on a central, mutual true center. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't think I've met anybody that's, I'm sure I have, but they didn't tell me. Yeah, that's very cool. Well, I hope I get to meet you, in the Soul G Network marketplace and otherwise. And I hope I get to collaborate with you at the Soul G Fest in Houston.
I look forward to it.
Another thing I was going to talk to you about, but basically the same, in the same vein of what I was talking about with the network. I really feel like that, the platform is for the, expansion of awareness of the individual's efforts like I'm talking about, like that you're displaying for others to see. So thank you again for coming in, and I hope to give you a big hug before in the physical before the end of the year.
I hope so. I look forward to it. I'll just say that.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Todd.
Well, we can always set the intention.
Yes.
It's a very powerful thing for us to set intentions
Absolutely.
now, uninhibited, unimpeded by the BS, the doubts, and the effery. I'm trying to cuss less online. You take care. All right.
You
I'll
as
see you later.
well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.